Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm going to start out today with a little shout out to my man Dave at DJ Sports Cards 86. He gave me a call. I think it was Monday. He just had an order come back from PSA, and he hit me up. He knows I'm a Stroud buyer. They had this CJ Stroud Silver Prism. If you're on YouTube, just holding it up. PSA 10, easy deal. I met up with him, cash and carry. Love me some easy deals. I did my fantasy draft, my dynasty league rookie draft last night. This was my first time. This is my first time in a dynasty. So we drafted the original team last year. So this is the first time in a rookie draft, and it's definitely much different. And it's been a little different than a standard yearly redraft league. There's just so much different research on rookies alone, right? You've got, in this particular league, we have 3 picks, right? Out of everybody that was drafted. We're just picking 3 people out of there. So, you really want to pick the right people. So you have to do a lot of research on that. Somebody outside of that league asked me, when I was talking about doing this, how do you know who to draft? I mean, you have three picks, so many people to pick from. How do you know who to draft? Is there anywhere to get information of a guaranteed, making a great pick, no matter where you're picking in the draft, to pick a player that's going to be a huge success in the NFL, right? Today, I'm messaging with a listener who asked me the same question, but in a little different way. They asked me, out of the newly drafted players, who are you going to prospect? How do you decide? Where do you get your information? How do you know it's good information? And finally, today, I'm talking to a friend and a listener of the pod who said they were at a show this weekend and someone asked them, what is the safest sport to prospect, in their opinion, that if you're going to hold a player or buy a player and hold a player for 2 to 3 years, what sport would be the safest? If you bought the rookies now and put them away for 2 to 3 years, what sport would be the safest? So today's episode is really inspired by, these questions and some from the listeners. They're all great questions. And I think I'm one person to answer them, right? And it's clearly my opinion. But I think if we had 10 people here, 15 people, 100 people, 200 people in this room, we would all answer differently. Some of those answers would sound the same, but they would all be different answers, because I think there's so many different ways to get information in any sport. And now, I mean, today you could go anywhere. You could go to YouTube, you could go to TV, radio, anywhere on the computer, CBS Sports, ESPN Sport. I mean, just article after article people are writing about all these players. And it's interesting, when I'm getting ready for this draft and I go look at it, I could pull up 4 different people's mock draft or what they, who they say. Now, probably in the first 10 picks, all the players are there. They may be in a different order, but all the players are there. But after you get beyond those 10 picks, it starts to become a free-for-all, just depending. And everybody's making a great point. Everybody's saying, I believe in this kid. I believe in that guy. And this is the reason why. And they're really great points, right? But does anybody really know for sure? Everybody has a different approach depending on the player, the sport, the team, and it really, after somebody's drafted, like here it is, a week ago, we're waiting for the NFL draft, and then the draft comes, and now we know where the players are. Now you shuffle the whole deck up again because who are their supporting cast? Where are they going? Is it a quarterback? Are they going to a team that already has a quarterback? If it's a running back, a wide receiver, where do they fit in immediately? Or do they, or is this going to be someone they're going to, bring along slowly? So all those things change again. And do we get a guy? For me in this draft, do I draft a guy that I feel is going to start right away? Who knows how good he's going to be, or he's going to go and get into a system that works better, but he may not play as much right away. So these are all the things that really come down to prospecting on cards, right? Um, I'm going to talk today about football because it's what I know best. But whether we're in the hobby and we're going out to, prospect on cards or buy cards of guys, especially people haven't even played yet, right? We're only buying hype, right? We're only buying what the market says it is going to go up, right? I mean, well, I'm going to go through a few years here and talk about it, but I mean, I'm going to jump ahead and kind of go back. But right now, I mean, CJ Stroud is the guy, right? Played well last year, so he's earned his position. But a lot of times we're prospecting on people that haven't earned their stripes yet, haven't done anything yet, and we're buying and selling, and the prices keep going up and up and up, and nobody has any idea if this person can even play. This player can even play in the NFL or any team for that. When it comes to football, right? Unless you watch a lot of college football, you need to rely on other sources of information on players, especially newly drafted players. I watch sporadically. I watch football mostly, more in December, January, because I know, these are kind of the players that we're going to be looking at come the draft. But there's other people I know that every Saturday they're watching football. They have their games taped, and they're really watching these games, and they know these players more than I do, more than most people do. And they'll be the first ones to tell you, I can see all this, but they're playing against other college players. They're playing against other players that are probably not going to the NFL, right? So we can see all these things they're doing, but it's really hard to compare what they're going to be like next year if they do get drafted and do go against NFL players and not, other college players. I like to find my sources for information. I like to find people who are paid top dollar, right? Because they're getting paid good money. This is what they do for a living. They're getting paid good money for their opinion on players. Uh, and also someone that's been doing it for a while, not like all of a sudden a brand new name. I don't even know who this is, or something pops up on TikTok or Instagram and says, "Oh, this is, this person's going to be great." Like, if I don't know you, I mean, I can read what you're saying, but and chances are you probably got it from somebody else. Because a lot of people do that in this industry, just take other people's information and use it as their own. Um, but I like to follow people and listen to people who's been doing this with, some good success. I listen to a lot of fantasy sports. I've talked about that before. Um, a number of the people from the shows, uh, I really value I listen to these shows. I've been listening to them from years, and I value their information. And not only do I just say I believe in them, but I've listened to it. I've used their strategies. I've gone after players they've talked about, and they're good. They're good at what they do. Do they miss on players? Of course they do. Um, there's no way to know how a player is going to react to their situation when they get to the NFL, right? Players in college. I mean, QBs, who are they throwing to? They have great receivers that are always open they look great, right? Receivers are getting the ball by great QBs and maybe not being able to be covered well. Being a big fish in a little pond is the best place to be. But many times that situation turns for someone who gets drafted and go to the NFL, they become a little fish in a big pond. And it's what happens then determines how well this player will play, how successful they will be. Funny thing about the NFL is most players, they get thrown right into the fire, right? And those who do well, you get praised. We all buy their cards, their values go up. And those who don't, they get benched or traded away. And we lose money on some players like that. And I know there's not a lot of prospecting on running backs and wide receivers and things like that. I mean, they need to show us a whole lot before their value goes up. But quarterbacks, I mean, we start up here on a quarterback. Hey, we've never even seen them play in the NFL yet, and we're trading their cards and they're paying huge money for these cards, and they haven't even played again. They haven't even put a professional uniform on yet for the quarterbacks. But everybody else is, we need to wait and see on these people. We can't take a chance on them. We haven't seen anything from them yet. We don't know how they're going to be, right? But the quarterbacks, we're just willing to go out and spend and flip, and and nobody knows how these players are even going to react to the situation. Back in 2020. That was my first, year back in the hobby, right? Back to 2020, all the quarterbacks drafted: Herbert, Burrow, Hurts, Tua, Love. Sheesh, that was my introduction, man. Prospecting on football. Well, this was certainly easy, right? Just pick a few quarterbacks, prospect the heck out of them, sell the cards, make money, right? What am I thinking? 2021 came. Hey, I'm thinking rinse and repeat. Right? We're going to go all over again. We're going to do this all over again. This is easy peasy business. My mistake that year was I didn't sell the cards fast enough. I got caught holding onto some that I still own today. Right. And that was my first little wake up call to, maybe this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. Things are changing, and out of those quarterbacks drafted in 2021, the only one right now with any success at this point is Trevor Lawrence. Not to say the other ones, all the other ones that have been, most of them not even on the same team. I think Trevor Lawrence and Kyle Trask are the only two that are still with their team that drafted them. But you never know how these players are going to do, how they're going to react, or even if they were prepared to go. Like, what we're starting to see is teams just, drafting these guys, all these quarterbacks that just got drafted in the first round. I remember, months ago thinking about hearing people talking about the draft and say, oh, there should only be, one quarter. Caleb Williams should be the only first round draft pick. The rest will go second and third round. And by the time the draft got here, there was right off the board, right? 6 quarterbacks, bang, right off it was just insane in the first round. It was just insane. And people were saying that they were not first round draft picks, but these other teams were trading up. They were giving stuff away to get to these, falling over themselves to get to these quarterbacks, which should, set off alarm bells for us, especially when you're prospecting, is if these guys shouldn't have been first round draft picks and they got picked in the first round, and then the teams who picked them say, yeah, they're probably going to be our starter next year. I mean, I would worry. And, everybody talked about Atlanta and their draft pick, but after they signed the Kirk Cousins deal, but who knows, this guy may end up having the best situation, get to go in and work behind somebody, and not get thrown right out there, day one to thrown into the fire. But even with the 2021 quarterbacks, right? Everybody was making money, and it was purely on hype, and not the actual gameplay of the player. I think Mac Jones had a couple good years, a couple good games or within that season. And then all of a sudden that next year, I mean, his prices were going through the roof. And I was a believer, right? I was out there buying up, buying up the max, selling a bunch, buying a bunch, and just thinking like he's the next Tom Brady, right? And geez, we all got beat up on that one. And then 2022 came, right? It's going to be much better this year, right? Isn't it? Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Bailey Zappi, Sam Howell, and then Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, the last guy drafted, the last pick of the 7th round, right? The only guy with the starting job right now. So right there, that tells you that not even the best minds and the professionals, the guys who get paid the big bucks, they're wrong too, right? They didn't see that one coming. Nobody's perfect, but I say it's the human element. That's the X factor. I mean, all the film, the interviews, the data they collect. And I know, for a number of years that they have like these guys go through some type of the interview process where they're, kind of just evaluating their psyche, right? To see, because that's a part of who you are and coming in to play a sport, right? I love watching the show Survivor. They're in their, I think, 49th season, right? I've seen every season. I've seen every episode of every season, and I still love watching the show, right? After 49 seasons. And the reason why, the show is never the same. People have all the information in the world. You could watch all the people that are there now, you can go back and watch 48 episodes, and it's only going to help you a little bit to come and beyond season 49, right? The human element is what makes that show so exciting. You cannot predict what people are going to do or say when they're under pressure, right? When, in this case, when they haven't eaten for days and they're dehydrated or whatever. Like, say one thing, do something can change your whole game. You could one week you could be in charge and everybody loves you, and the next week everybody's trying to vote you out, right? Um, it's the human element that can change everything. And I don't think they can predict that. And I think that's what comes down to, these players that some do so well and some don't. And again, it's some that go to some teams, right? Like when the draft was coming, I was watching the draft, and Neighbors got drafted to the Giants, and I don't think he was happy about it. Right. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but if you're watching the draft, I mean, his mother went up to him and said, "Look, you just go there and play," but I think he wanted to go to any other team except for the Giants. Right. So does he think if he goes there, he's going to a bad team and it's not, I don't know. I just got that feeling that he didn't want to get drafted by the Giants. Right. So it really depends on where you're going. Some of these players that we really like that are really talented, they go to a team and then you say, I don't know, maybe that team didn't work out for that player. But if you're drafting them in the first round, they're going to keep you around for a while unless you're really bad. Then we get, we'll jump up to 2022. I learned my lesson being in this hobby. I took a hard lesson in 2021, and it wasn't happening again in 2022. I wasn't waiting for any of these players to start playing. Right, I was selling these players before the season even starts. And I talked so many times last year from January to July about Desmond Ridder. Not that I believed in him, because I really didn't. And many episodes I said, I am going to sell this guy before the season even starts. But he was becoming the big hype last year. He had a great situation in Atlanta. People were, I mean, the team, the supporting cast, the market hype, they were just driving his prices up, and I was just happy to sell all those cards off. I didn't get stuck with one Desmond Ridder card. By the time I came home from the National, I was Desmond Ridder-less. I had 0 of his cards, and I was happy that way. And a lot of people said, oh, not a lot of people, a handful of people said, "Oh, he's going to be great. You probably should have held on to a few of those cards." I said, "No, I was fine getting rid of them, and I'm glad I did." Um, to me, the key to being successful in prospecting is to move the card with the values on the way up. And it sounds so simple, and you're like, "Oh, come on, Big Ken, can't you give me a better tip than that?" But you don't need to wait to the peak. I mean, if you're buying well and if you're grading the cards, you don't need to wait until that card hits its peak, right? I've used a phrase on here many times, leave a little meat on the bone, makes the people around you happy, right? Because every time I felt like I was starting to get greedy on cards and I was firm, I got to get, this card's selling for, I believe in this guy, I got to get this price, always lost money. When those words started coming out of my mouth, I should have known that I'm going to lose money on the cards. So you don't hear me talking like that anymore. When if I and that's why I hold cards and I'm not bringing them to the show because I don't want to be tempted to sell them at lower prices than I want to sell them. That's why I just leave them out of the mix. I have plenty of stuff to go sell at shows, right? But in my mind, and this is for me, you take this for what it's worth. Just I don't want to get greedy. I don't want to get greedy and say I need to get every penny out of this card because generally me wanting every penny out of a card means I end up not selling the card and then the prices go down. And I always say in my mind, I should have took that offer then because now I'm selling it to somebody else for less. And it was dumb. I should have just sold that card when they had the opportunity to sell it. And cards of players that are on their way up, they're easy to sell. They're easy to sell because the hype is there and people are swooping in, right? And they're like, oh, we all need this guy. We need this guy. Perfect time to sell. Here you go. Here you go. I talked this year. My strategy going into the National this year is sell all my football before the National because everybody's going to be buying it to bring to the National, right? Once it gets to the National, there's all that competition of cards out there. I, for the amount, the little bit more amount I may get waiting a few weeks, I just assume move them all beforehand, right? And then set up at the National with my women's soccer and my WNBA cards and enjoy myself nice and relaxed, right? Because everything I've worked for 6 months, I cashed out before the big show, right? Now I can go to the big show and relax and just really enjoy myself. Harder harder to sell a card when the player is at their peak, because when people know that player's at their peak or that card's at its peak, they know it's coming down. They're not going to pay peak prices. Very few people will. And then you just have to start getting creative to try to get peak prices or not get beat up on a card, because once a card starts to go down, it's almost free for all, and people are just like they back off. And for instance, if a card's $100, if it's 140 and now it's $100, right? It's on its way down. The next offer, people are $50, $55. Well, it's on its way down. I don't, if I buy it for 80, it could be 70 the week after, that type of thing. And it's harder sale. It's harder to go out and make that sale. I'd rather be on the opposite end. Card going up, make a sale, leave some meat on the bone. Everybody's happy. You know, to me, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to be in this hobby. And if you believe in the player, then you can hold their card. You don't actually have to go, get rid of it. I mean, if you want to PC somebody, or you really believe in a player like CJ Stroud this year, if you're thinking he's going to go out and have, like an unbelievable season, hold that card. Ride that wave. Let's see where it takes you. Uh, we're all in this hobby doing different things. We're all for different reasons doing different things. And my PC, I've haven't mentioned her in a while, right? Trinity Rodman, but there, her market is in waves too. When World Cup was there last year, it was up, it comes down. the new season just started for the NWSL. Prices are going to start coming up again. We've got the Olympics this summer, so there's waves to ride. And I'm happy to, I'm happy to be able to go out to the national with a bunch of the cards and a lot of other, women's soccer cards and stuff to move, because that's the time. Right now is not the time to move it, but then will be the time to move it. On the way up, move it when it's hot, right? I have some notes here that I'm just kind of scanning through here, but one of the notes I let put myself to say is not many quarterbacks can go out and give a Patrick Mahomes like performance as a rookie. Most quarterbacks, it takes a few years for them to start to look good or be successful. I know CJ Stroud did it last. I mean, he came out firing last year. I mean, I think it took a few games to get him to settle into his team and get to know his players. But I think by the end of the season, and they went to the playoffs, he was playing very well. I hope that continues, right? I hope that continues into this year. But I'm not going to be the guy holding CJ Stroud cards. Right. Again, I'm going to move those cards before the season starts, because if he goes out and has a couple bad games, that market is going to drop out from underneath him. Right. And all of us who are sitting there holding these cards. And then what do? Then we'll say, okay, well, now he's my PC. Now we're going to put it away and we're going to wait for that price to come back up again. And if it doesn't come back up again, then what? Right. We run into trouble, right? We run into get left holding the bag, right, of Mac Jones and Zach Wilson cards. And I don't mean to use Stroud's name in the same sentence as those two, because I think he's a quality quarterback, but you have no idea what's going to happen when he goes out and starts playing again this year. One of the things that I find interesting on a lot of these cards is, we prospect it, we sell them, the cards dip, we buy them back, right? And then we hope to sell them when they're coming up again. I mean, we've done this with Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and some Trevor Lawrence when he's dipped. I mean, Burrow got injured last year, and I was sitting on a bunch of his cards that I had to put away because the market dropped. And I knew that coming into this year, there's, I'm waiting for this push to start. I think his prices are starting to climb a little bit, but not where I expected them to climb. I expected them to be a little bit higher right now, but I still think that those step ups are coming. And I think Justin Herbert too. I think because people have so much money invested in him and in his cards that, they're really just hoping that things turn around this year and he starts playing like the quarterback people expected him to be. And we get to this year, I've been talking about Stroud, right? 2023, these are the players that we're prospecting on now: Stroud, Richardson, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Hendon Hooker. 4 of these quarterbacks have starting jobs, right? Two have a year experience. We got to watch them all season. 2 have a small sample size, right? Because Richardson had the injury and Levis came in as a replacement. Hooker, we got nothing. He was injured all year, and now they're talking about Goff signing a big contract there in Detroit. So I don't know if he's just going to be a backup for now on, or if does he get a chance? Does now this is a funny thing with him, right? I mean, we might say, well, he's all done. What happens if Goff goes out and gets injured and he's out, season-ending injury, and Hooker comes in, and all of a sudden he's playing amazing, right? So there's cards. Everybody's going to be running to their closet, including me, to pull these cards out, dust them off, and start selling them. So it's one of those things that you never know. Like, do you with the news that Goff is signing a big contract, I don't have a fortune invested in this guy, so I'm happy to hold these cards and see what would happen. Give him a year, give him 2 years. I don't mind seeing what happened, because there could be many situations that, he could get traded to another team and become their starting court. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. So I'm happy to hold on to those cards. I don't mind prospecting on a guy when you're paying pennies on his card. And that's kind of what happened with Desmond Ritter. That's that whole Desmond Ritter thing started last year. I was buying these RPAs for 40 and $50, and I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm happy to take these. All this guy's going to have is some hype or a couple good games, and these cards could fly up. And that's exactly what happened to me. And it was a good move for me. It was a good move for me last year. Doesn't happen that much where I make a great move like that, but that was a great move for me. Obviously Stroud is everybody's hard on him. And I think Richardson is, I'm going to say, a slow second. I expected to be more value right now in Richardson. I expected him to be closer to Stroud, even though he was out last year. I just think so many people, he's a really talented kid, and so many people believed in him. So I think this may be, if his card value doesn't pop up, this could be one of those players that everybody says, I'm going to sit and wait and see, and then come out in September and he's playing amazing and his cards could go through the roof, right? So this could just kind of be the opposite effect, where maybe better off, if the prices don't go where we expect them to go at Richardson, maybe better off holding him until the season starts, right? Because I don't see any great value in his cards right now. And at what point do we get hype on Will Levis? Right? In between now and the National, are his prices going to go up? I know the prices on the other two quarterbacks. I know Richardson, Stroud, these prices should be going up based on nothing else but news and hype, right? They're not playing any football between now and July, but just news and hype will drive the market on these cards. I'm out at shows all the time. And over the last month or so, like, I hear people coming up and, they'll see a Bryce Young card and be like, this guy's the real deal. He's going to be great this year. He had a rough, a bum year last year. And you hear about AR. Oh, he's coming back stronger than ever. Like, you watch, wait and see what happens to him. And then Will Levis, right? Oh, I'm prospecting him. They're building a team around them. Titans investing all this money. He's going to be the man this year. You just wait and see. All the people I listen to, it's only CJ Stroud. they say no information. They don't believe in any of the other ones. I mean, I think Richardson would be the only one. It's a wait and see what that shoulder looks like, because it's just had surgery. He was done for the year last year. See what happens with that shoulder and come back and show us what you have. Stroud performed well all year, something none of the other quarterbacks did. So he deserves to have the hype and the level of, the prices on his cards right now. He's proven himself. Small sample size, but he's definitely proven himself that he can compete at this level. And that's really the most important thing. He can compete at this level, because some of these guys that all went in the draft this year, nobody knows right now if they can compete at this level. Any of these players that they drafted, it's just really a wait and see. To me, my opinion, if you're not prospecting the player, sell the card. Get it, hold it, sell it. Again, don't be left holding the bag full of the Mac Jones and the Zach Wilson cards. Don't be stuck with the hot potato. And if you bought well and you graded, it just should be easy to move the cards. The listener I was talking about at the beginning that had this question, like, my answer obviously was football, but he felt Bowman baseball was the best play for prospecting. And as you could imagine, after having to go through 4 weeks of 4 years of Bowman baseball cards, pricing them all out, I was pretty depressed to find out that there really wasn't that much value in these cards. So I strongly disagreed. But I understand my problem is I held these cards way too long. I had the mindset back then to buy these cards, put them in boxes, and just put them in the closet and let them mature in there. And I really didn't understand the hobby that well uh, when I did that. And I understand it a lot more now, and I know that is not the play to put those cards in a box. I mean, it could be it could have been the play maybe on one card or two cards. These people who put the 86 Fleer boxes away and pulling out Michael Jordans, well, that was the play. But in this case, it wasn't the play. If I was selling those cards, if I was staying on top of those cards and selling the hype, I would have done so much better. But I'll go back to something I say all the time. If you know the sport, if you follow the sport, if you know the players, you follow the players, that's where you should be prospecting. That's where you're going to get your information. And it's not work, because it's what you like to do. It's what you love to do. I did an episode just a few weeks ago called "Stay in Your Lane." And I'll say that here again. Stay in your lane. The losses I took in the hobby were always me changing in the lanes I didn't belong and I didn't have enough knowledge of. So you stay in your lane, you keep it moving. Don't sit on any cards for too long if they're not in your PC. And for me, pulling into my football lane, easing the seat back, because I know it's going to be smooth sailing, because I know it's just second nature to me right now, all the information that I consume on a daily basis. I'm going to be doing the Norwalk show this weekend. I'm setting up with my man Rich at Zwiddlebug Cards. So if you're going to be around this weekend, if you're in the Norwalk area, you're going to that show, stop by, say hello. I will be there. And I'll be back Monday with a recap of that show and the weekend. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. And until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you.